The wind howled through the dense, gnarled trees surrounding Rivers Manor as Emily Rivers stepped from the carriage. The Victorian mansion loomed on the hill like a forgotten sentinel of the past, its darkened windows staring down at the quaint town of Ashbrook below. A chill settled over Emily as she gazed at the sprawling estate, her heart pounding not only from the cold, but from the weight of her new inheritance. "Are you sure about this, Miss Rivers?" the driver asked, peering up at her with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Emily nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, it's what I've always wanted, a chance to delve into my family's history." Her voice, though steady, betrayed a hint of uncertainty. As the driver departed, Emily grabbed her satchel and headed up the creaky steps of the mansion. The front door, an intricately carved piece of dark oak, seemed to groan in protest as she pushed it open. The foyer beyond was shrouded in shadow, the only light coming from the weak afternoon sun struggling through dusty windows. The air inside was stale, carrying the musty scent of ages past. Emily shivered, pulling her coat tighter around her. The grand staircase, with its ornate balustrade, led up into darkness, and the large chandelier hanging from the ceiling swayed slightly, despite the absence of any breeze. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The first few days were spent unpacking and attempting to breathe life into the old mansion. Emily busied herself with dusting off antique furniture and organizing her belongings. Despite her efforts, an unsettling sense of being watched lingered in the air. She could not shake the feeling that the mansion itself was observing her every move. It was on the third night that the first strange occurrence happened. Emily was in the library, perusing old family records, when she heard a faint, mournful cry echo through the house. Startled, she looked up, her eyes scanning the dimly lit room. "Hello? Is someone there?" she called out, but only silence answered her. Shaking her head, she returned to her reading, dismissing the sound as her imagination. But the disturbances continued. Doors creaked open on their own. Shadows seemed to shift just out of the corner of her eye, and a cold breeze would sweep through the hallways, leaving her with an icy shiver. Emily began to document these occurrences, hoping to find a rational explanation, but the feeling of dread only grew stronger. Determined to uncover the source of her unease, Emily began researching the mansion's history. She found that Rivers Manor had once belonged to the Ravenscroft family, a wealthy and influential clan that mysteriously vanished a century ago. The mansion had been abandoned for years before her inheritance. One evening, while exploring the mansion's attic, Emily stumbled upon a hidden passage behind a false wall. The passage was narrow and dark, the air heavy with dust. With a sense of trepidation, she ventured down the passage, using a candle to light her way. At the end of the passage, she discovered a small, secret room. Inside, old, tattered furniture and a few personal belongings lay scattered about. An ancient diary, bound in cracked leather, lay on a dusty desk. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it. The diary belonged to Eliza Ravenscroft, the matriarch of the Ravenscroft family. As Emily read through the entries, she uncovered a tale of obsession and betrayal. Eliza had been obsessed with controlling her family and maintaining her power, even resorting to dark rituals to ensure her control. The final entries spoke of a terrible event, a ritual gone wrong, and a family that vanished without a trace. As Emily delved deeper into the diary, the supernatural occurrences grew more intense. She began to experience vivid nightmares filled with images of Eliza and her family. The once silent mansion now echoed with ghostly whispers and distant cries. One night, Emily was jolted awake by a sudden piercing scream. She rushed to the hallway where she saw a shadowy figure moving swiftly toward her. The figure's presence was accompanied by an icy chill that froze her in place. The figure materialized into the ghostly form of Eliza Ravenscroft. Eliza's face was contorted in rage and sorrow, her eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "You must hear my echo," Eliza's voice wailed, "or you will join the lost." Emily, though terrified, stood her ground. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Eliza's ghostly form flickered and wavered. "My family, my life. It was all taken from me. I am bound to this place, waiting for someone to hear my plea." Emily's investigation led her to the heart of the mansion's dark history. She learned that Eliza's actions had cursed the Ravenscroft family, binding their spirits to the mansion. The echoes of their despair and Eliza's final ritual had created a malevolent force that continued to haunt the house. Determined to break the curse, Emily performed a ritual of her own, guided by the diary's instructions. She gathered the necessary artifacts and recited the ancient incantations, hoping to appease the restless spirits and free them from their torment. As she completed the ritual, the mansion was engulfed in a whirlwind of supernatural activity. Doors slammed shut, the temperature plummeted, and Eliza's anguished cries filled the air. Emily stood firm, reciting the final words of the incantation. The whirlwind of activity suddenly ceased, leaving the mansion in a profound silence. Emily, exhausted and trembling, looked around. The atmosphere had changed. The oppressive weight of the haunting presence had lifted. With the curse broken, Rivers Manor was finally at peace. The shadows that had once plagued Emily now seemed to retreat into the corners of the mansion, leaving behind a sense of calm. Emily continued her work in the mansion, transforming it into a historical archive dedicated to the Ravenscroft family. She honored their memory by preserving their story, ensuring that their tragic past would not be forgotten. As she looked out over the town of Ashbrook from the mansion's grand balcony, Emily felt a sense of closure. The echoes of the past had been heard and put to rest, allowing her to embrace a future free from the specter of despair that had once haunted her new home. Jack Turner adjusted the rearview mirror, taking one last look at the bustling city they were leaving behind. The early morning sun cast a golden hue over the rolling countryside as he navigated the winding road leading to Hollow Creek. Beside him, Lisa Turner sat with a hopeful smile, her eyes scanning the lush green landscape. "It's beautiful," Lisa said, her voice filled with excitement. "Just think of the peace and quiet we'll have here." Jack nodded, though a shadow of doubt lingered in his mind. The quaint cottage they were moving into had seemed like a perfect escape from the chaos of city life. However, as they approached the old stone house, he couldn't shake the feeling that something about it felt off. The cottage stood at the edge of a dense forest, its ivy-covered walls and overgrown garden, lending it an air of faded grandeur. As they pulled up the driveway, Jack felt a shiver run down his spine, though he attributed it to the crisp morning air. The first few days at the cottage were filled with the usual tasks of settling in. Jack and Lisa unpacked boxes and tried to make the place feel like home. The atmosphere was peaceful, but an undercurrent of unease began to creep in. Lisa noticed an inexplicable chill that seemed to sweep through the rooms, despite the fireplace roaring with heat. One evening, as Lisa arranged flowers in a vase on the kitchen table, she saw the bouquet shift slightly, as if an unseen hand had nudged it. She turned to Jack, her face pale. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jack glanced at the flowers and shrugged. "It's probably just the draft. Old houses have their quirks." But the disturbances continued. Doors would creak open on their own, and objects seemed to move when no one was looking. The unsettling events grew more frequent and intense, leaving the Turners on edge. Determined to find a rational explanation, Jack decided to explore the attic. He discovered old trunks and dusty furniture, but nothing particularly out of the ordinary. However, as he moved a stack of old blankets, he found a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside, he uncovered an old leather-bound journal. The journal belonged to Eleanor Ravenscroft, the previous occupant of the cottage. As Jack read through the pages, he learned about Eleanor's troubled life. Her entries spoke of a deep sense of betrayal and paranoia, detailing a life filled with isolation and fear. One entry, dated just before her death, was particularly chilling. Darkness is closing in. They have betrayed me, and I fear I will never escape this torment. If anyone dares to enter my home, they will suffer as I have. As Jack and Lisa delved into the journal, the supernatural occurrences grew more intense. The cold drafts became unbearable, and whispers filled the night air. Lisa began to see fleeting shadows and hear disembodied voices calling her name. One night, Lisa woke to find her bedroom door slowly creaking open. The room was bathed in a cold blue light, and a figure emerged from the shadows. Eleanor's ghostly form, draped in tattered clothing, hovered at the foot of the bed, her eyes glowing with an eerie light. "Leave this place," Eleanor's voice echoed with a chilling urgency. "You are intruding on my domain." Lisa screamed, waking Jack, who rushed to her side. But when he looked around, there was no sign of the apparition. The ghostly encounters drove Jack and Lisa to seek answers from the local villagers. They learned that Eleanor had been a reclusive woman who lived in fear and paranoia. The villagers spoke in hushed tones about the tragic end of Eleanor's life, her mysterious disappearance, and the rumors of dark rituals performed in the cottage. Determined to put an end to the haunting, Jack and Lisa researched historical records and consulted with local historians. They discovered that Eleanor had been betrayed by someone she trusted, leading to her death and the subsequent curse placed upon the cottage. With a deeper understanding of Eleanor's tragic past, Jack and Lisa prepared to confront the vengeful spirit. They gathered items from the journal's instructions and set up a ritual in the cottage's attic, where Eleanor had spent her final days. As they performed the ritual, the atmosphere grew tense. The temperature dropped and the oppressive darkness seemed to close in around them. Eleanor's ghost appeared once more, her rage palpable as she tried to disrupt the ritual. Jack and Lisa remained steadfast, reciting the incantations and performing the cleansing rites. The battle between them and the malevolent spirit reached a fever pitch, with Eleanor's cries of anguish echoing through the house. As the ritual reached its climax, Eleanor's ghost began to waver, her form dissipating into a mist of sorrowful light. The oppressive atmosphere lifted and the chilling drafts ceased. Jack and Lisa, exhausted but relieved, looked around the now peaceful cottage. The haunting at Hollow Creek had come to an end. The cottage, once a place of terror, now felt like a home where the echoes of the past had finally been put to rest. Jack and Lisa embraced, their bond strengthened by the ordeal they had endured. As they looked out over the serene landscape of Hollow Creek, they felt a sense of renewal and hope. The past had been confronted, and their future was now filled with the promise of peace and happiness. Laura Stevens arrived at the farmhouse just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the misty landscape. The old house stood solitary at the edge of the dense forest, its Victorian architecture both charming and foreboding. Laura took a deep breath of the crisp evening air, feeling a mix of anticipation and unease. As she unpacked her belongings, the house seemed to sigh with age, its creaky floorboards and rattling windows adding to the atmosphere of solitude. Laura set up her writing desk in the study, determined to find inspiration in the quiet and isolation. The first few nights were peaceful, but Laura soon began to notice strange occurrences. A sudden chill would sweep through the house, even when the fireplace was roaring. Objects seemed to shift positions on their own, and the old grandfather clock in the hallway would chime at odd hours. One evening, Laura was startled by a cold draft that seemed to wrap around her like an unseen embrace. She shivered and looked around, but there was no apparent source for the icy air. Her curiosity was piqued, but she brushed it off as a quirk of the old house. Determined to get to the bottom of the disturbances, Laura began exploring the house more thoroughly. In the attic, she found an old trunk covered in dust. Inside, she discovered a collection of personal items belonging to Elizabeth Ashford, the previous occupant. Among the belongings was a faded journal. Laura opened the journal and began to read. The entries spoke of a passionate love affair between Elizabeth and her fiancé, Thomas Blackwood, followed by a betrayal and murder. The final entries were filled with despair and fear, hinting at a tragic end. As Laura read more of Elizabeth's journal, the disturbances in the house grew more intense. The cold drafts became unbearable, and Laura started hearing soft, sorrowful whispers in the night. She felt an eerie presence watching her, and the once peaceful farmhouse now felt oppressive and menacing. One night, Laura was awoken by a spectral figure standing at the foot of her bed. Elizabeth's ghost, her form shimmering with a ghostly glow, reached out with a spectral hand. Laura's heart raced as the apparition seemed to plead for something. Laura decided to investigate the local history to learn more about Elizabeth's tragic story. She visited the nearby town and spoke with elderly residents who remembered Elizabeth and Thomas Blackwood. The townsfolk revealed that Elizabeth had been wronged by Thomas, who had betrayed her trust and left her to die alone in the farmhouse. Laura learned that Elizabeth's spirit was trapped in the farmhouse, bound by her unresolved pain and anger. The betrayal and murder had left her ghost restless, seeking closure. Determined to help Elizabeth find peace, Laura researched ways to communicate with and appease her restless spirits. She found an old ritual designed to release trapped souls and began preparing for it. The night of the ritual, the atmosphere in the farmhouse was charged with tension. Laura set up candles and arranged the items she had gathered from Elizabeth's belongings. As she performed the ritual, the air grew colder, and the spectral figure of Elizabeth appeared once more. The ghostly figure seemed to react to Laura's efforts, her presence growing more intensely. Laura recited the incantations, hoping to ease Elizabeth's pain and release her from the farmhouse. As Laura completed the ritual, the ghost of Elizabeth began to waver, her form dissolving into a mist of sorrowful light. The oppressive atmosphere in the farmhouse lifted, and the cold drafts ceased. Laura felt a sense of relief and closure, knowing that she had helped Elizabeth find peace. The farmhouse, once a place of terror, now felt calm and serene. Laura continued her writing, finding inspiration in the tranquility of her surroundings. The haunting at Hollow Creek had come to an end, and Laura's connection to the past had given her a renewed sense of purpose and peace.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows and whispers of the unknown. We hope these chilling tales have left you with a lingering sense of unease and curiosity. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more spine-tingling content. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever encountered a presence that just wouldn't let go? Until next time, remember, not all echoes are meant to be heard, and some shadows are better left undisturbed. Stay vigilant and keep the lights on.